Let's be honest, the USS Gerald R was a PR nightmare, broken elevators, faulty catapults, and a price tag that made taxpayers furious. $13 billion for a ship that couldn't launch planes reliably. Now the Navy is asking us to trust its twin sister. This is the USS John F. Kennedy. And if this ship has the same problems, the outcome won't just be embarrassing, it will be dangerous, because in March 2027, she's heading to sea, and if she fails, the era of the supercarrier dies with her. This is the story of the Navy's most expensive gamble, and why everything depends on a ship that isn't even finished yet. The aircraft carrier is America's ultimate weapon, a floating fortress, a symbol of power, a city at sea that can strike anywhere on the planet. For decades, the Nimitz class dominated the oceans, but by the early 2000s, the Navy knew the truth. Those ships were old, their technology was aging, and America's enemies were catching up. So the Navy decided to build something revolutionary, the Ford-class supercarrier, a ship so advanced, it would redefine naval warfare for the next 50 years. 2 nuclear reactors, generating 3 times the electrical power of any carrier in history. Electromagnetic catapults that could launch aircraft faster, smoother, and more efficiently than steam. And automation so sophisticated, it would need 15% fewer sailors. It was the future, but the future broke. August. Construction begins on the USS Gerald R. The ambition was staggering. 23 new technologies, all introduced at once. The Navy wasn't just building a new ship, it was reinventing the entire concept of what a carrier could do. But ambition has a price, and the Ford paid it, over and over again. May 2017, the ship is delivered to the Navy. Cost, $13.3 billion, 23% over budget. But that was just the beginning. The electromagnetic catapults, EMALs, were supposed to be revolutionary, gentler on aircraft, more reliable than steam. Instead, they failed, repeatedly. During her first deployment in 2023, EMALs required constant repairs. Pilots couldn't trust it. Engineers scrambled to fix problems that shouldn't have existed. Then there were the weapons elevators, advanced, magnetic, cutting edge, and completely broken. The Ford was supposed to have 11 elevators moving ordnance from below deck to the flight deck in seconds. But when the ship was delivered, only 4 worked. It took years and millions of dollars to get the rest operational, and the costs kept climbing. The Navy had promised a ship that would save $4 billion over its 50-year lifespan. Instead, it delivered a ship that spent years in repair yards, unable to deploy. Critics were brutal. They called it a maintenance nightmare, a $13 billion science experiment. Some even asked the unthinkable: was the supercarrier obsolete? Because while the Ford struggled with elevators, America's enemies were building hypersonic missiles, weapons that travel at 5 times the speed of sound, weapons designed for one purpose: to sink aircraft carriers. The question became unavoidable. Had the Navy just built the world's most expensive target? Longed optimism. But here's the thing about failure: if you learn from it, it can become your greatest advantage, and the Navy learned. Enter the USS John F. Kennedy, CVN 79. She's not a copy of the Ford, she's the version the Ford should have been. Because while the Ford was breaking, Navy engineers were taking notes. Every failure, every malfunction, every expensive mistake, they documented it all, and they used that data to redesign the Kennedy from the inside out. First, the radar. The Ford was equipped with the dual-band radar, a complex, cutting-edge system that cost over $500 million. It was powerful, it was advanced, and it was overkill, because carriers don't fight alone. They operate in strike groups with destroyers equipped with the Spy-6 radar. The carrier's radar is backup, so the Navy made a ruthless decision: scrap the dual-band radar, install the Enterprise Air Surveillance Radar, EASR, instead. It costs several $100 million less. It's easier to maintain, and it's already integrated across the fleet. EASR detects stealthy cruise missiles with 35 times more sensitivity than older radars. But it's not about perfection, it's about practicality. The Ford chased perfection, the Kennedy chases reliability. Second, the catapults. EMALs on the Ford was a disaster, but EMALs on the Kennedy is different, because the Kennedy's catapults incorporate 18 months of operational lessons. Engineers ran deadload tests, firing simulated aircraft weighing up to 80,000 pounds, thousands of times before the ship ever touched water. The Ford had to debug its catapults while pilots flew real missions. The Kennedy debugged hers in a lab. Third, the flight deck. This is where the Kennedy truly separates herself. The Ford inherited its flight deck layout from the Nimitz class. It worked, but not perfectly. The Kennedy's designers didn't inherit anything. They rebuilt it. They relocated the island, redesigned the geometry, optimized every meter of deck space. The result: a 33% increase in sortie generation. That's not a typo. 33%. If the Ford launches 130 sorties a day, the Kennedy launches 173. That's the difference between overwhelming an enemy and giving them a chance to fight back. And it's not because of bigger catapults or faster recovery systems. It's because of better design. So the Kennedy sounds perfect, right? Not so fast, because the Government Accountability Office, the watchdog that keeps the Pentagon honest, has serious doubts. The Navy Navy claims the Kennedy will cost $13.2 billion. The GAO says that estimate is optimistic. The Navy claims they reduced labor hours by 18% compared to the Ford. The GAO calls that unprecedented because in the last 50 years, the largest labor reduction ever achieved was 9.3%. 18%, that's not just optimistic, that's almost fantasy. And if the Navy is wrong, the Kennedy could face the same cost overruns, the same delays, and the same public backlash as the Ford. But here's what the critics miss. The Kennedy isn't just a ship, she's a message. Because in January 2026, the Ford deployed to the coast of Venezuela, Operation Absolute Resolve. It was the first time a Ford-class carrier engaged in real-world combat operations. And she performed. The EMLs worked, the elevators worked. The systems that had failed for years held. The Kennedy inherits that combat-validated experience. She's not theoretical anymore. She's proven. And she arrives at a time when the Navy desperately needs her. Because America's carrier fleet is shrinking. The Nimitz class is aging out. Retirements are coming faster than replacements. For 1 year, just 1 year, the Navy will operate with only 10 carriers. 10. That's the lowest number in decades. The Kennedy doesn't just need to work. She needs to work now. Here's the twist nobody talks about. The Ford wasn't a mistake. She was tuition. Every failure, every broken elevator, every faulty catapult. The Navy paid for those lessons. And the Kennedy graduates with honors. She's not the prototype. She's the production model. She's equipped with systems the Ford had to retrofit. Her flight deck is optimized from day one. Her automation is proven. Her crew requirements are lower. And she's future-proof because the Kennedy generates substantially more electrical power than the Ford. Enough to support directed energy weapons, laser defense systems, electromagnetic railguns, technologies that don't exist yet, but will. She's also designed from the keel up to operate the F-35C Lightning II and the MQ-25 Stingray, an unmanned aerial tanker that doubles the carrier's combat radius to over 1,500 kilometers. That means the Kennedy can strike targets the Ford can't reach, and do it without putting pilots at risk. But here's the real question. In an era of hypersonic missiles and carrier-killer weapons, does the supercarrier still matter? The answer is yes, because the carrier isn't just a weapon. It's a statement. It says we can project power anywhere, anytime. It says we don't need permission to protect our interests. And it says if you threaten us, we will bring a floating city to your doorstep. The Kennedy doesn't just carry aircraft, she carries intent. March 2027, the USS John F. Kennedy will leave Newport News shipbuilding and head to sea. She'll carry the hopes of a Navy that bet everything on a new generation of carriers. She'll carry the weight of the Ford's failures, and she'll carry the future of American naval dominance. If she succeeds, the Ford class becomes the backbone of the fleet for the next 50 years. If she fails, the debate over the carrier's relevance will end, and not in America's favor. But here's what I believe. The Kennedy won't fail, because she wasn't built by guesswork. She was built by experience. She wasn't designed by theory. She was designed by battle. And when she finally launches her first aircraft into the sky, she'll prove something the critics forgot. That America doesn't just build ships, we build legacies. And the legacy of the Kennedy is just beginning. Because America's power is not just in its weapons. It's in the courage of the people who refuse to let failure be final.